All right, everybody. So today we're looking at the patch notes for 1.03 in Elden Ring. This is the first major Elden Ring patch, so we got some totally necessary bug fixes, but then we also got some balance changes and some quest changes, which is pretty cool. So we'll take a look at all of this. Um, the first major change being the functionality change of adding NPC icons to your map, which is sick. It'll show an icon for each of the NPCs as well as their name on your map, which is dope. So after you find them, you can return to them in your journey or kind of map out your journey better. It's just a quality of life change. They've also added an NPC entirely, Jarbairn, as well as some new quest phases for all of these NPCs. I think the quests just kind of weren't done yet, and they added the extensions of these quest lines, which I think will be resulting in more summonable NPCs in boss fights in certain situations. So I think some of these NPCs are probably going to end up being summonable. Bug fixes. I'm just going to highlight some of the most important ones that people are having trouble with just to show that they are now fixed. This one was so annoying for some people. Just people weren't getting specific items from bosses. So very annoying, just horrible, and that is apparently fixed. This one was one of the most popular issues amongst players. Arcane, the scaling for Arcane on some weapons was totally screwed up. So some weapons were just entirely like neglected because of that. Rivers of Blood was one of them, and that should be fixed. So a lot of the Arcane scaling should be fixed. This one annoyed the shit out of a bunch of people. It was just a weird bug where people could only get 2 talisman slots instead of 4 because of the way that they encountered the pouches, I think. So now they added an item at the Twin Maiden Husks where you can buy one of them, and it should fix the bug so you can keep getting all 4. This fire giant one annoyed the shit out of me for a while. You basically used to have to jump off your horse right as you get to 50% health and then hit him once to start the second phase, because if you were on the horse while starting the second phase, your game would crash. So I got annoyed by that one a few times, but I ended up killing him by just jumping off my horse before the second phase. Fixed now apparently though, so that's great. This one was one of the most popular as well. After you get to 25 with some weapons, you'd level up to 24, then you go to 25, and your scaling would go to shit. Like, all of your damage was worse instead of better. So they obviously had to fix that, so now that should be working. This Erdtree's Great Shield thing was getting abused in PvP. It was basically like a unkillable sort of thing. They fixed that. Just made you really hard to kill in PvP. And then this one is an interesting one. A lot of people were using this for some of their builds. They would use Ash of War Determination on one of their weapons, use it, and then bring out like a staff or a different weapon and deal a bunch of damage with that. That is now fixed. So if you use Ash of War Determination, it will only work for the weapon that it is applied to. So you'll only get the extra damage or the extra buff or whatever it is on that one weapon. So that's important for not using that Ash of War, to get new damage out of other weapons, whatever. And then lastly, the performance improvement and bug fixes is other performance. I'm hoping they added some, or they started to patch the frame rate stuff. I'm hoping that hit some of the frame rate stuff, because that's one of the major issues I had with the game. It's just kind of the weird performance issue, frame droppy stuff. So, and my computer should definitely be able to handle it, so we'll see how that goes. I have not played around enough to know. Balance changes. This is where it gets a little bit more interesting. So, increased drop rate of smithing stones and added the smithing stones to the early game shop lineup. Great, cool, easy. Seemed annoying to get all the smithing stones you needed for regular weapons, especially if you had to switch them at any time. That would have been a pain in the ass, or get new ones. I think that's great. And I think it's also nice for new players, just getting power early, faster, and easier so that they can get through the game better. I think that's all good. Increased shields effectiveness. I think this is probably for shields that were getting underused, but I'm not sure. I think some that were actually already good also got guard boost buffs. I know that, but I'm not sure exactly where this balance change is applied. But I think the intention was to make it so other shields that were less popular would get used more. We'll see. Some crafting, increase the damage to crafting items. That's great. This is obviously good. I got no use out of any of these items for healing Torrent. I barely used them. I would just let him die and use my flask. So that's a great change, I guess. Hopefully those items now have some use. And then this whole chunk here is all about reworking some of the mage stuff. It usually decreases the FP consumption. Decrease the FP consumption for all these. This one is decreased, but they increase the damage. So basically, they're trying to get extra play for all of the mage spells that don't get used as often now. A lot of the mage spells seem like too costly for their damage or whatever. This is trying to make it so mages have more options. It may seem crazy that a lot of the spells are getting buffed, but it's actually because of how powerful mages are. You're like, what the fuck? But it's actually just trying to buff up some of the ones that are underused. So a lot of the stuff that probably isn't as powerful. I still think this is an amazing change for mages. Mages will have a lot more fun just cycling through spells. So that's great. There's new I'm sure a bunch of new powerful mage builds will come out of this. This one is huge for speed running, as well as PvP. This was getting abused in PvP as well. But speed runners were using this Hoarfrost Stomp basically to get through the whole game really quickly. It's incredibly powerful, but they nuked it a little bit and increased the cast time. So that's really an interesting change, because that's going to change how you do speed runs, or at least how effective they are. Maybe not how you'll do them. Maybe you'll still use that item. I have no clue, but seems like the speedrunners are going to have some things to think about there. Bloody Slash also got changed a bit. It does more damage to yourself and less to them, and increases the cast time. It's just a nerf to the Bloody Slash. Bloody Slash is insane though, so I think that's kind of fine. I'm not really sure. Hopefully it's just not worthless now. This is obvious and necessary. Sword of Night and Flames damage was just nuking everything early. It's just decreased, just a nerf to that one specific item. Necessary. This is other enemy and weapon balance changes. I was hoping for something on Moonveil, but we didn't get that, I don't think. I tested out the Moonveil. It seems just as powerful, and I was watching a few other streamers, and they seem to think the same thing. Moonveil, I think, is exactly the same. So, maybe we'll get that change at some point, but that item seems broken as fuck. Oh yeah, and then the Mimic Tear thing. So the Mimic Tear got nerfed. It was the obviously best summon. I personally don't use the summons because they seem to sort of trivialize some of the boss encounters. If you do use them, I'm not against that. I think you still kick ass, and the game's really hard, so that's a lot of sometimes you need those babies. But I just don't use them because it makes a lot of the mechanics seem sort of trivial and kind of changes the fight for me when I'm playing my melee build specifically, because if I summon something, I can just go behind them and hit them a bunch, which then they're dead, and I never even had to dodge their attacks or had to like interact with the mechanics of the boss. So I like to do just the mechanics. I just don't use the summons. So that's a good change to me, because I think a lot of people were probably getting through chunks of the game with a Mimic Tear that maybe they wouldn't have with other summons, because that thing was entirely broken. It was just super insane, especially its damage. It could kill bosses on its own, basically. You could stand in the corner and just let it kill bosses for you. So that's very welcome. So that's the end of the changes. I hope that the game feels a little better. I hope Moonveil gets nerfed a little bit, but I also want to see how those mage changes shape up. That seems like a really interesting part. So we'll see what new mage builds. Oh, and then the new speed runs. We'll see what happens with that Hoarfrost Stomp. So tons of new changes. This is a big deal. So let me know all your thoughts on this in the comments of this video, as well as in my Discord if you want to chat further about it. But yeah, I'll talk to you guys soon for the next video, and I hope you guys like these patch changes. Peace.